So to speak to the functional body, we have our autonomic nervous system, right? We have our centralized, but the autonomic nervous system, in charge of things that we don't think about, our heart beating, all of that. And within that, we have two options for our body. We have the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. And I'm going to keep this really brief. The sympathetic is what we know as fight or flight. It's our emergency response. I call it your alarm state. Okay. It's where your body, what you were describing when you have conflict and your body just everything tightens up. It's different for everyone, but usually it's just this fast heartbeat. It's an intensity about life. It's a protective mode, right? And some people experience it in different ways, and some people stay in that state continually. And that can be as simple as like fidgeting, like they can't not move. Like there's constant fidgeting. Yep. And because they want to stay in that sympathetic state, because going into the parasympathetic is going to bring up a lot of stuff. So alarm state. Then we have the other state, which is your parasympathetic. And this is your rest, digest, and I would add on detox state. This is where you restore. This is where you have normal, healthy function. And I call this your calm state. So this is unique to you. This is, the place where we really want to be living. This is where we have health. And so the bummer is that you can't be in both at the same time. Your body has to choose. So if you are in sympathetic, if you're in alarm, you're not in calm. And if a lot of us are constantly being triggered, constantly being pushed over into that alarm state, we're not able to do the normal healthy function of the calm state. And so when we were talking earlier about that building, so if you think about when you're young, and you're you don't know how to process emotion. You don't know how to process maybe even physical experiences. And so you just shove it, or you just stay in that alarm state continually. And as you stay in that state, your body's not able to recover. And so over time, the simple function of not being able to digest food properly, like you were saying, when you're in that alarm state, your digestive juices, your gastric juices do not release properly. Your stomach acid is alkalined. And that's one of the few places where you actually want acidity is in your stomach. Most people don't realize that. And so all of those things start to go simply from being in that state of alarm. And so when food comes in, it ends up like fermenting in the intestines and starts impacting the intestinal lining. And that can lead to leaky gut, and that can lead to food sensitivities and all sorts of issues. So it just builds and builds and builds. And it starts with being in that alarm state. So as we take a look at our life and we take account for how much of my time am I spent triggered or in this state of rush or in this state of alarm. And again, it looks different for everyone. Some people be like, oh, I'm not frantic. I'm not, freaking out. But can you sit? Can you be still? How is meditating for you? Do you hate meditating? Like answering those kinds of questions. Is it hard for you to fall asleep? Like there's so many different ways it shows up in a body. But when you're in that state, it's letting us know that your body's not able to restore. And when it comes back to the simple act of healing, healing occurs in the calm state. So if we're not in the calm state, we can't heal. And that is the biggest number one block I've encountered through my personal life, through my training, watching, interning, learning from my mentors, and now experiencing with all of my clients. That's the number one block, is this inability to stay within the calm state. And I'm speaking from a person, I'm doing this work because it is my work. Like I too, this is the constant battle every day of cultivating my unique state of restful ease, that calm state in my physical body and also in my mind and my emotions, but creating a space for my body to be able to do its natural, healthy function of balancing, restoring, detoxing, digesting, all of that great stuff that we want it to do. And so that's where the work that I do is really about bringing in tools that can help to cultivate that. Because the reality is we're in a world that's constantly triggering us, constantly bringing up this state of alarm, whether it's you're driving in a car and suddenly your phone rings and you're freaked out by it, or, your child is losing their mind, or a dog, or, there's all these different things. It's a boss, it's, an Instagram comment. Right now, there's so much going on you can be triggered by politically and relationally as a result. So it's how do we, in that chaotic life, cultivate calm? And so a lot of people are like, oh, you mean like peace, right? Like, it's so much more than that. It's so much more than that. It's not just this, because peace to me is this like kind of almost disconnected, just like I'm just, and that's how I define it, right? Other people might define it differently, but I feel like it's kind of an easy check the box. Oh yeah, that's fine. I'm talking about still being in the middle of the chaos of what's going on in 2020, still feeling frustrated about not being able to go back to work with COVID or different things like that, but being able to at least have moments or even maybe a few hours in your day where you're able to cultivate that state of restful ease and that things aren't resolved, nothing's perfect, but your body's in a state of rest and your mind is in a state of rest. And that is done through these different tools. So it could be nutrients. It could be taking ashwagandha. It could be, as simple as adding salt to your water sometimes, right? There's so many simple things. It could be taking a moment to go horizontal on the floor. It could be doing breath exercises. I'm a big fan of breath exercises of just for a moment, just breathing in and out through the nose, right. Taking a flower remedy, all these different beautiful tools. There's so many out there. And so it's really about bringing those forward and to make it authentic, picking the ones that work for you, right? Because for me, I love flower essences. Like I'm all about them. They're my personal favorite. That and breath exercises and a couple of things. But for me, those are like my go-tos. And a lot of my clients love those too. And or we have other ones that we cultivate, right? Because it's all about finding what works for you. Not everything's going to work. So,
absolutely. I mean, so much of what you're going to find that works for you is just experience, going into it and trying it. And don't become overwhelmed. We're listing a lot right here, right?
Yeah.
And you could say, my God, that sounds like hours of work. Why don't you just try taking 3 deep breaths right now? That will actually activate the parasympathetic system if you do it. Also, take a longer exhale because that activates it, right?
Yeah.
And then go from there and try something new. Just add 1 minute of, just meditation or just mindfully listening to music, going outside and just closing your eyes or looking at a leaf. This all activates your parasympathetic. So it's not to say that you become overwhelmed and say, oh my God, it's actually adding to my sympathetic nervous state.
Now I'm stressed about being in my calm state.
And that's the problem. A lot of patients have information overload that just adds on to it. So it's almost like more checklist for your body when it's already inundated and in this stressful situation.